to let things cool down a bit inside there. And there can be millions and millions of termites within one mound. Basically a whole world of activity going on in there.
Everything now is still facing north-east. Yeah, maybe she's gonna come back here, have a month, but she's still following the motive and experiment.
Okay, copy. Thanks, Orbs. Thanks very much for your help. Okay, folks, well, it sounds like she's following the trail of some steenbuck that she chased off, and we're not sure what she's going to do. It might be worth heading back over to see how Mark's coming along with his tracks and tracking, and I'm going to chat with Aubrey now. He's just right here and get a better idea of exactly what he thinks is going to happen. We'll catch up with you a bit later.
Well, that sounds like it was very frustrating. Karula almost there, but turning around and then heading in another direction is quite sad. I've been on the trail of one of her sons. At the moment I don't have tracks because it looks like he crossed into an area between Philemon's cut line and Zoe's road and Rebecca's road, which is quite a large area. So we can do a little bit of a loop around, and it might get us past the hyena den, so we might pop in there and have a look. But the only option that we have is to try and head up here and see if he comes out onto this road after he came up from Treehouse Dam. We followed his tracks all the way down to Treehouse Dam, and then from Treehouse Dam, so he sort of came down the one road to Treehouse Dam and then almost did a 90-degree and went up the other road, clearly stopping at the dam for a drink, no doubt, because of the angle of his trajectory of his movement. And that'll bring him out somewhere maybe onto this road closer to the hyena den. So the only chance we have right now is to try and find his track coming out onto this road. And of course, see what else we can see along the way. You never know what there is. Welcome to our sunrise safari, a beautiful Monday morning. Starting to warm up a little bit, little patches of cloud, keeping the sun faint, but it is managing to warm things up a bit. Jim sent a tweet asking about leopards, or female leopards smaller than males, and by how much. Are we talking about leopards or the tracks? I didn't quite get it. Did you get it?
The leopards. No.
Oh, just the leopards as an animal. Jim, up to half the weight, perhaps. So Jim, let me try and think of a comparison. Female leopard versus a male leopard, size-wise. Well, males can be up to about 80 kilograms. I mean, very, very big males, maybe 90 kilograms. Female leopards are maybe 40 to 40. And obviously a lot more robust than the females. What have we we got here? Some tracks apart from buffalo. There are mostly just buffalo. Tracks is not always a guarantee we're going to find the animal, even if it is here on Djuma. I mean, it was impossible to follow the lion tracks because they moved off the property, but when you have lion or leopard tracks on the property, as much as it sounds fairly straightforward, can get a bit difficult sometimes when they do leave the road. And that's like Karula right now is not really walking in a straight line. She's wandering around, and short of having to leave the vehicle and go walkabout. Let's see, hyena tracks. Well, this is the road down to the hyena den, so naturally there are hyena tracks there. But if that cat's general direction was north, even though he was sort of zigzagging down to Treehouse Dam, it would more or less bring him out here near the hyena den. We'll have to go and check on Rebecca's road after we've been down here. Sun, I'm hoping that maybe they might be lying out in the sun warming up a bit, even though it is getting late in the morning for hyenas to be out. Yesterday I don't think they were here because it was cold and windy, so they were probably, it doesn't look like there's any activity. Lots of hyena tracks, but nobody else.
Are you boys on the drive? Just back in. We were at the big gala anywhere this morning, and now we're gonna be heading out again soon.
Well, they were active this morning. There are a lot of fresh tracks around, but quite clearly they've all gone back to bed right now. Back into the den. Let's get up towards Rebecca's road and see if we can find some sign of this catch. Otherwise we're going to have to go all the way back to the old hyena den. asking if it's possible that since the lion have been quite present of late, could it be that that's why the leopard have been quite scarce? It's possible, Gail, especially since the lion have been quite vocal. Quite often you'll find that if the lion haven't been calling, much like now, I mean right now, the lion and the leopard were found in exactly the same place this morning. So it's not a scenario that you will always find. It might just be for now. I would expect that since these lions have been moving, in fact there's a lot to be drawn from what we found this morning. The Kahuma Pride headed on to Gari Main and they started going east generally, right up to sort of the northeastern part of their territory. At the same time, during the evening, there was a big male lion, and I'm guessing it's one of the Matimbas that must have come from the east down Leadwood Road and onto Gari Main heading west, where he eventually went south. Now, Liam and I were talking about this and we were thinking, well, maybe he was calling and the Kahumas were actually trying to avoid him, maybe because of the young male with the Kahumas, who knows. It might just be that none of them were calling and they actually managed to miss each other. And the fact that a leopard has come back now might also be because maybe they were calling and the leopard could hear that they were leaving, and so he's decided to come back where the lion aren't, and that maybe because they've been calling here on Djuma, maybe that's why none of the boys who quarantine or Kanuma, why neither of them have been around. So while it might be the scenario now, it's not always the case. In fact, we've on occasion been with leopard when lions have been nearby, or we've had situations where we've had leopard in a tree and lions underneath. So it doesn't always work that way, but I would imagine that occasionally, and perhaps like now, this last few days, since the lion have been quite vocal here at Djuma, it's quite possible that the leopard stayed away because of it. But then I want to bring back another incident that we had not so long ago, a couple of months ago. We had the two Matimbas kill a buffalo just off of Philemon's cut line, Philemon's dip in the drainage line. And we had, I think it was Kanuma, if I'm not mistaken, or was it Quarantine, hanging around the lion kill. In fact, while they were eating, he was sitting and watching them above the drainage line, above the riverbed. Well, that in itself was unusual. He even managed to steal a little bit of the meat eventually. Got a little nibble out of that buffalo kill. We've also seen way in the past when these, I think it was the Nkuhumas, I think it was them, when they killed a buffalo and a calf just in front of Wertela Lodge. Induna was seen shortly afterwards coming to feed on that kill. Well, here are his tracks. And I'm guessing they're his tracks because it coincides with coming up from Treehouse Dam, and he's turned. We'll have to turn around because we're going to have to go back up Zoe's Road. He wasn't on the junction of Zoe's Road and Rebecca's Road, but here his tracks are coming up Rebecca's Road, and I'm pretty sure it's the same leopard. I don't know, you can't quite see, but maybe you can. There you go. Perfect male leopard tracks. So he would have actually walked right past where those lions were sleeping on yesterday. In fact, his tracks probably walk over where those lions were sleeping in the road. And somehow they must have avoided each other. Perhaps a time thing. The cats went that way around down to Gari Main. He came up a little bit west of them, and the timing must have been that when the cats were leaving, he was coming in. Whether they were vocal or not, I don't know. I certainly wouldn't have heard anything since I was staying up in Manuleti. Oh, wait, just on the chassis. Just looking now quickly before I turn around. I can actually see where he's come onto the road. Just in front of us here, he came out of the bush right here onto the road right here. So he would have come from almost due north from Treehouse Dam where he came out on Spum Road. And his tracks come onto Rebecca's Road right here. And we're going to turn around and we're going to go back and see if he went up towards Impala Plains, or I think he might have crossed through because there was nothing on the junction up there. I think he would have made a shortcut through here onto Zoe's Road, which means that he would have headed up Zoe's Road and then eventually got to Impala, Sandy Patch maybe, or Aubrey's Road. Exciting that we've still got his tracks to follow.
Gorilla turned around at the last moment. I was looking promising. I'm thinking we can try and help you.
Okay, sounds great. I've just picked up his tracks again on Rebecca's Road. He must have crossed through from Spum Road, past the hyena, then coming out onto Rebecca's, heading northwest on Rebecca's. I'm going to go and see if he comes out onto Zoe's. Where are you now?
Once you click outside, sorry mate, but I'll still follow the boundaries that we got in mind.
Okay, copy, thanks. I'll keep you posted.
Good luck.
So given that he's come from the south, he's come up from the south and heading more or less northwest. My guess is that he would have crossed through onto Zoe's. So we're going to have a look. There were no tracks here other than hyena tracks. And we'll have a look. There's a big junction up ahead. Oh, wait, here are his tracks now. He must have left the road. He's back on the road here. Hyena tracks too. Main junction will also give us an idea, because now that he's heading towards Impala Plains, I'm going to see if he's turning off. But it's time-wise, it's difficult. Elephant tracks, true. There's a Steenbok. Oh, there he goes. Thanks, VM. Off to Impala Plains it is. Oh, there's nothing here now. There we go. Well, now we've got two sets because there are also elephant tracks heading this way. So we've got leopard and elephant to look for up towards Impala Plains. Fresh elephant been feeding here. Fresh feeding from elephant. Morning, Alan. Have I ever been on a drive on the tracker seat with my bare feet dangling? Many times, Alan. No, still got elephant and still got leopard tracks. So I know I'm quite engrossed with tracking at the moment, but I think Scott's got something to show you. I'm going to cross over to Scott. I'm going to keep at it, and I'm sure you'll know soon enough if I find anything.
Well, welcome back. And Brian and myself were racing over towards Mark and the leopard tracks in order to try and give him a hand, but we stumbled upon this little family of dwarf mongoose, and they're such cool little animals, especially when they are so close to us. We've got a great view of them, and they're just starting their day off slowly, warming up in the sun, and they would have spent their night sleeping in this old termite mound. We've seen about 4 or 5 so far, but they're scurrying about and hard to keep track of, and it's also going back in and out of the burrows. But it appears like the main chamber where they're all coming out of is in the center of the shot now, and 3 have just popped out of there in the last few minutes, and I wonder if many more will. Well, I've got some good news. There were 3 correct answers for the bird that was calling earlier, and it was a black-headed oriole that we could hear calling while we were waiting for the leopard that didn't ever arrive, sadly. So a very well done to Joanne, Georgianne and Diane. You are the 3 winners of this morning's bird call quiz, and it really is impressive that some of our viewers may never have been to Africa yet have got such a great knowledge of what goes on here, and it certainly does keep us on our toes. Well, as wonderful as this sighting is, folks, it sounds like Mark has found something equally interesting over where he is, and we're going to cut over to him, and then Brian and I will be able to make our way into that area to help him also follow up on the leopard tracks. I'm, as sure a lot of us are, also desperate to see a leopard. It's been too long, and we need to head over there. So over to Mark, and we will catch up with you a little bit later.
Well, the big boar just suddenly decided to run off. There was a whole family of warthog, and the mama and piglets are fine next to us, but he's taken off. Now I have to tell you that our young male leopard has come all the way here to Impala Plains, and as he got to the open area, he left the road, and I was watching these warthogs. I wasn't sure if he left to the left or if he left to the right. Impala are having a good sparring session, so they're a little bit engrossed. The warthog are safe. They're out here in the open, and there's no way that a leopard is going to be able to get to one of these warthog. But I'm wondering if he isn't somewhere around the edge of this open area watching these impala. There's quite intense sparring going on. There was also a harrier hawk, African harrier hawk in the background. So a little bit of a dilemma. Do we go and look for the tracks leading away from the open area, or do we just sit and watch what's going on here for the time being? If he carried on going west, he would have crossed over into, oh, near that piglet now, big male warthog's running back the other way. But that's because there was a car on Triple M. He's obviously a very shy big boar. Just hiding away. Bachelor group of impala are all engaging, and that's possibly a target for a leopard because they get so busy with each other they don't see what's going on around them so much. What's interesting is you can see the two grooming each other in the foreground. They were sparring just a few seconds ago, and they've stopped sparring, and now they're doing a little bit of elo grooming. Very important, the sparring at this time of the year, because they've got to challenge dominant males for access to females, and fortunately for them they can practice their sparring and spend time feeding and build up their muscles and build up strength, whereas the ram that's in charge of the females will be losing a lot of muscle, losing strength, because he spends all his day chasing males away and mating with females and doesn't get time to look after himself. Okay, so I'm going to roll a little forward, have a look at this. No, we've got no gravity drive today. We've used it all up. Recharged it. I'm not getting anything. Now the composition that we have here are the two small piglets, which would have been born around December, so they're only about 6 months old. And their mom, who's this very big female, she's got a magnificent set of tusks, and you can also see as she's eating, she looks like she's maybe broken the lower left tusk, but her lower right tusk is quite solid. And then the other piglet off to the side, that's a daughter, probably going on 2 years old now, or maybe 18 months, maybe even 2.5 years old, but a daughter from a previous litter that sticks around to help out with the new litter. The big boar running again. He's just nervous, I think. The impala have left Impala Plains. They moved off, probably because it's starting to get warm. It's time for them to head into the bush for feeding. Something's not right here. Just managed to get final control on the radio there. Just got a tweet in from Diane. Thank you, Diane. Very interesting news saying that Kumale quarantine killed a warthog on Simbambili and that it was stolen by lion. Now, I've just seen a vehicle going by on Triple M. The Simbambili is directly, straight ahead of us across Triple M, and this is where his tracks have been heading. So I'm pretty sure that that is where our leopard is. And maybe one of the reasons why that big male warthog is so nervous like that was maybe he heard the squealing. And evidently, Q male is walking straight into Zimbabwe where there was a pride lion, and I wonder who. Maybe one of the Tsalala breakaways even. Maybe Birmingham. Don't know. I'm going to have to see if I can find out some other way. But that would be somewhere up ahead of us. And that's just in line with the direction that his tracks have been walking in northwest, in a northwesterly direction straight from Treehouse Dam. So I'm still going to see where his tracks crossed, and I'll probably be able to go and find them crossing Triple M as well, which is our western boundary. Interesting. Thanks for that news. Warthog squeal when they're getting caught. It's very difficult to keep them quiet because they squeal almost before they even get caught. They squeal in anticipation. If it was a male warthog, it was probably a pretty heavy fight for quarantine male to have caught a male warthog. This is what I'm led to believe. And that squealing probably is what attracted lion's attention. Now, this just sort of reflects on what we were saying earlier, question whether the leopards had not been in the area because the lion were here. Now, lion have very large territories, and within the lion's territory you're going to find several leopards' territories, and leopard know that they live within the lion's territory, and obviously there are times when they can hear lion and they can avoid them, but there are also times when nature just puts them in the same place. It's unavoidable, maybe because they didn't know the lion were there. And this seems to be the case now with quarantine male. Found himself, after walking all the way from Little Gowrie, crossing Gowrie, Western Gowrie, or crossing Djuma the way he did, and finding himself on the sort of northwestern sector of his territory, of the range that he covers, only to have his kill stolen by a pride lion there, even if he was trying to avoid the lion here. Bye-bye, Mrs. Pig and piglets. We'll see you later. We're going to just head up towards Sandy Patch. I didn't copy that.
The message happened yesterday when the incident of quarantine and the water being stolen by the Styx miners happened yesterday.
Happened yesterday? Well, then this is not quarantine's tracks here, because that wasn't yesterday. This was today's tracks.
Getting mobile after coffee.
Porcupine tracks, yeah. So that message about the quarantine male and the lions, evidently that happened yesterday, not today. But then it can't be the same leopard. It must be Djuma then. Well, let's see. We're going to find out shortly if his tracks.
First updates, I moved out of the area where I was standing by. But it is tracks of So my daughter was somewhere around Rebecca's, but at night she's Mark's following up on.
So we got to see if his tracks come out here somewhere. Go ahead, Scott.
Mark, did you have the last tracks?
Last track's just on the eastern side of Impala Plains. I'm checking Sandy Patch South now, heading up to Sandy Patch to see if he comes out here. Otherwise I'm going to have to check on Triple M.
Okay, copy.
Okay, copied. I just heard copy me. Didn't hear the beginning of that message. Georgie in Australia. I think I've got it. Unfortunately, it's breaking up a lot. I think Georgie was asking if the younger warthog that was with the mom, if she had her own babies, would she stay with her mother? Sometimes yes and sometimes no. We have seen warthog where the adult female has a litter and her daughter has a litter and they're all together. But generally not. I would say generally the young female, when she has her own litter, then becomes her own little matriarch, and she then looks after her own family. Sometimes not, though. We know that there's that family of warthog on Arathusa, on the airstrip at Arathusa, where there's 7 piglets. That piglets from the daughter and from the mom, they're almost the same age, and there are no leopard tracks here. In Wisconsin, Milwaukee. wanting to know the purpose of warthogs holding their tail up in flight. Yes, now, Jilly's saying, is it similar to leopard and other animals for the young to follow? Yes, it is. Even though, Jilly, it is a very slim tail and it's got a very small tuft of hair, it is to some degree a signal for the young to follow, as well as a moving target for them to follow. Even though it is quite thin, I suppose running through the grasses, it's still thicker than the grasses. And I suppose the youngsters learn to single out that mom's tail. Elephant. Elephant all moving south, so we'll go down. I'm going to follow the power line down to Triple M and we'll see what's come out on the main road. Unfortunately, there has been traffic there that might obliterate some of the tracks, but there might be tracks along the edges of the road. There doesn't seem to be any tracks here. So let's head over to Scott and see what Scott's got. I'll see you again.
Welcome back, everyone. And despite the leopards taking us on a run around this morning, that run around has brought us into an area which helped us find these elephants. And this is a small herd that we are getting to know. We saw them yesterday morning, and it's very distinctive because the trunk that you're looking at is distinctively shorter than it should be. It lacks the prehensile fingertips. She's lost the end of her trunk, this cow. And it's interesting, it's just a herd of 3 of them. It's probably 2 of her previous offspring. And although the young bull, the smallest of her calves, is nursing and trying to nurse, I think it might actually be nursing right now. It's quite old, and I'm surprised that she's allowing it to nurse. We also saw them yesterday afternoon, but there were no vehicles there. It was just the Djuma waterhole cam that alerted us to their presence. As I was saying though, the youngster that is nursing is quite old. It looks to be about 2 years old. About to drink milk. And here he's trying again. Let's see what happens. You're too old now, buddy. Even though the trunk is missing ever so slightly, a little piece off the end, which is a very useful part of their trunk. It allows them to pick up the smallest of things. They could even pick up a peanut with their prehensile fingertips. She lacks these. Morning. Hello. She is very close to us. We're just hoping to find some food nearby. This is an incredibly hard piece of wood that she's just broken off, but look at the texture of that skin. It's really beautiful in the morning sunlight. Marianne in Arkansas. Good morning. Marianne's interested to know some behavior that she witnessed on a previous drive with a young elephant that lifted its trunk up towards the vehicle and smelt us, and then continued to put the trunk into its mouth. And she's wondering if by putting the trunk into its mouth it would be helping to taste or sample the smell that it picked up from us. And I think it was more of just a funny maneuver rather than helping to better process our smell. Their trunk is essentially just an extension of their nose. It's just a very long column of nostrils, really. And by just smelling the air, that would have picked up enough information for it to work out what it wanted to. And I think by putting its trunk in its mouth, it was just a display of sorts, and young elephants will sometimes put their trunk in their mouth for a lack of a better place to put it. I wonder why these three are separated from what they would normally be in a larger herd than this. Who knows what it could be? It isn't hugely uncommon though for animals that do live communally to occasionally break off and do their own thing. But it is interesting that it appears for almost the last 48 hours these three have been alone. I'm going to try and reposition the vehicle. It's quite thick vegetation in here and I'm not sure how lucky we're going to be, but it's definitely worth a try. So hold on and let's see if we can get you some better views. We may have one last moment with them before the vegetation gets a bit too thick. Not ideal, but we will get a visual of the youngest elephant, probably in a few moments, passing through a little open clearing as he follows the rest of the herd. There we go, there he's putting his trunk into his mouth again, and it could just be a habit, I guess.
Perhaps a comfort thing.
Exactly, perhaps a pacifying effect, as Brian's just suggested. Just like humans sucking their thumb, a go-to maneuver when you're not sure what else to do. I always find it interesting how silently they can move through the vegetation, and also how they can disappear. They are huge animals, but can so quickly dissolve and blend into the environment that they live in, which certainly makes things interesting when you are on foot and next thing you know there's a wall of elephants in front of you. Now that it is beginning to heat up, they will start to flap their ears more readily. They pump litres and litres of blood through their ears every minute, and that's their cooling system. Those massive ears are not for hearing purposes, it's for cooling purposes. So it's an animal that's adapted with some really strange improvements. Its extended nose that it can use as an extra limb to help feed, and those gigantic ears that actually don't help hearing, but they in fact are the cooling system. Chris in Washington, good morning. Chris would like to know, what does elephant skin feel like? And as you can tell just by the way it looks, it's quite rough in some sections, and very deeply textured. But in certain parts of the body, I guess in the armpits where there's a lot of friction and rubbing, it can be exceptionally smooth. So depending on where exactly you are feeling on an elephant, it will impact on the smoothness and the texture of the skin. I've only felt an elephant once, and that was at a rehabilitation center which rescued elephants from disturbed areas. And it was a beautiful young bull. He was about 25 years old, and it was really incredible to be able to touch and feel inside the mouth, feel the trunk, and get an understanding of how they feel. But that was only once off, and as you can see, the elephants have disappeared into some thick vegetation. We'll leave them to carry on searching for food. It's a never-ending quest for elephants, really, and we will continue and see what else we can find. Even though the leopards have taken us on a bit of a run around this morning, it's not the end of the world, and at least there are some leopard tracks on our property. We've really been battling the last few days with very, very few signs of leopards. Oh, didn't feel too good. It's over a little stump there, but it should be fine. Years old. At that stage they'll start to spend more time away from their mother, but still stay relatively nearby. But when they're small, they literally do not leave their mother's side, and it's really beautiful to see elephant cows and the affection they have, especially for newborn calves. I've only seen it once when we arrived, probably a few minutes or potentially within an hour of a young elephant being born, and there were 6 or 7 cows all encompassing head to head this tiny little calf, and they all had their trunks holding the calf up, helping it take its first steps. It was incredible to witness, but I've only seen that once. The road I'm driving down is a road quite close to where Mark's been searching for this leopard. I was hoping that the leopard may have changed track and veered towards this road. Its general direction of movement was not, in fact, in this direction, but it's the closest place that we can possibly search. A lot of hyena tracks moving in this general direction. Maybe they know something that we don't. I'm just going to stop here and check this road junction very carefully. I'll just be a minute or two to make sure there's nothing that we've missed over here. In trying to find out where it's gone, will help in this afternoon's drive if we're to just give up on the tracks then we'd be starting off this afternoon on the back foot, essentially. Really interesting stuff to hear about quarantine and what he's been up to in the last 24 hours. That, as far as I'm aware, it's, as Mark would have discussed with you, it sounds like he managed to catch a warthog, but that was stolen from him by lions. Wouldn't that be incredible to see? And it really is interesting, would be very interesting to know how often leopard come across lion and how often it's just a matter of seconds that separates them from living and dying, because if lion get a hold of a leopard, the leopard doesn't stand much of a chance. Thankfully though, leopard are masters of disappearing and also great climbers, so they have the refuge of the trees. Got a question through from Susan. Morning, Susan. And Susan would like to know any updates we have on Karula and the potential of her having cubs. Not sure what noises I heard there, but we can just stop and listen for a while. Susan, there's been some very interesting information on Karula in the last week or so. Basically, we got a report, and I think Monday or Tuesday, from one of the guides that he had seen her with suckle rings, nursing rings around her nipples, indicating that she would have had cubs. Now, nobody saw the cubs, and the only report that I got was that she was seen with suckling rings. The very next day, we got a report that she was mating with Tingana, a male leopard. Now, interestingly enough, we did get some feedback from one of our long-term viewers who remembered that on Karula's third litter, she did a very similar thing. She had given birth, but she was seen mating with a male leopard shortly afterwards. It was for a short period of time, then. Leopardess will sometimes do this to give men the false impression that they are actually the father of those cubs. Now, the reason why she'd want to do that is that would prevent that leopard from killing cubs that are not his own, which is what male leopards will do so that they can get their genes into the system. So it's one of actually the biggest killers of leopard cubs. It's other male leopard that did not father them. Now, what is different about her mating with Tingana this time, as opposed to the last time she was seen mating when she did actually have cubs, was that she continued to mate with Tingana for about 2 or 3 days, which means that she either didn't have cubs in the first place, or possibly lost the cubs very shortly after she gave birth to them. And leopard can almost immediately mate with males once they have lost their cubs, because their next step will be trying to raise the next litter, and they won't waste any time about that. So who knows, possibly it means that she's lost her last 2 litters that she's given birth to, and that's after having, I think, raised 5 or 6 litters successfully. So it looks like her luck may have turned. Anyway, time will tell. We nearly got to see her this morning, and that would have been great. We could have made some assumptions of our own, and even though we didn't, there's still a chance we could find her around Buffelshoek Dam this afternoon. So that's good prospects for this afternoon, and about as in-depth of an update as I can give you, Susan. But again, this is all going on what we've heard, not what we've actually seen. George in Florida, good morning. George would like to know if the big cats use their vision and sense of smell to predominantly find prey, or will they also follow tracks? I think it's only their hearing, their vision, and their sense of smell that they use in order to find prey. And I've never actually noticed any of the predators looking down at tracks. Their other senses are far greater, and they can probably smell an animal that's walked down a road more easily than actually following its tracks visually. So they either see their prey, hear their prey, or smell their prey, or in actual fact, see, hear, or smell any other potential threats to them, not only their prey. Where is the bird that's making this noise? Brian and I are both scanning, but I can't see it. Can you see it, Brian? Wow. It appears that we have a little work on our hands here. It's so close. But where is it hiding? See if we can find it. There it is. It was a little Coqui Franklin, and it's quite a rare bird to see here. Well done, Brian. And I believe you've already seen one with Mark this morning. So 2 Coqui Franklin in one drive. I guess they filled up the slots of the 2 leopards that we were hoping at seeing at one stage. Karuna was so close to us. I mean, we could see the vehicle there, and Mark was on steaming hot leopard tracks. So Brian and I thought, well, this is going to be a jackpot second half to the drive. We're going to be switching between 2 leopards depending on which is performing the best. But in fact, it turns out they've evaded us.
2 Coqui Franklins though.
2 Coqui Franklins though, exactly. We probably see more leopard than Coqui Franklins, to be honest. So we're trying to get some equilibrium out here. Brenda from Virginia, great question. Brenda has just asked, if Tingana were to kill Karuna's cubs, for example, that were not fathered by him, would she in fact mate with them? And yes, there's a strong chance that she would. Very close to this hornbill, so I am going to whisper because I don't want it to fly away. They are such pretty birds, the hornbills. This is a red-billed hornbill. It's the smallest hornbill we get out here. And like a lot of other animals this morning, it's enjoying basking in the morning sun. The evenings are quite chilly, but the days in winter are almost always sunny with blue skies. just been taking the last few seconds to try and listen as intently as I can to the bush around us. There's a lot of different birds calling. Oh, and there goes the red-billed hornbill. And we are still in an area where this leopard that Mark has been tracking could pop out at any given stage. And listening can often be one of the greatest tools in finding leopard, because we rely on different animals to alarm call and lead us into where they could be moving. Didn't hear anything there though. Just got a question through from Gig, and Gig's wondering if Karula has in fact lost her 2 litters, previous litters. Is she getting a bit too old for the job now? And no, I don't think she is. Leopard can be very unlucky when it comes to raising cubs. I know of a leopard that lived to about 8 years of old, so she died very young. The female can live up to 20 years of age. Anyway, this specific female attempted to raise 6 or 7 litters and did not manage to successfully raise 1 cub. She was eventually injured when she made a warthog kill, and it sliced one of her front paws basically in half, and that injury she couldn't recover from, and she slowly withered away after having not raised 1 cub to adulthood. And interestingly enough, the main animal killing her cubs was male leopards, and at that stage there was a lot of disruption amongst the male leopards, and there was new males coming coming and going through her territory, which made life difficult for her, because there was always different males that wanted to sire her cubs. And again, I just think it's been bad luck more than anything that Karula's lost definitely her last litter in December. What's happened now more recently, we're not too sure of exactly yet. But she's certainly got a few more years in her before she starts getting too old to be a good mother, I think. Okay, well, while Brian and myself continue searching for anything interesting for you guys, let's catch up with Mark and see how he's coming along. We'll see you later.
Well, welcome back. We're on Sandy Patch, heading up towards Sandy Patch. We just left Impala Plains. I reluctantly have had to give up on that leopard. I went back to where I last saw his tracks, and I was walking around trying to ascertain where he had gone from there. It's almost as though he walked down the middle of the road, and it's a nice sandy road. There's no grassy patch in the middle as there is here. And well, I know that I must have driven over 1 or 2 of his tracks, but there's a point where I just cannot find where he left the road, whether it was to the left or the right. Quite clearly, it's at some point around the edge of Impala Plains. He must have come out onto Impala Plains and actually stopped looking out onto the open area. There were impala there. Here comes Scott. There were impala there. And the warthog are grazing. The warthog are still quite busy. I'm looking now, there's some impala further back that I saw a minute ago. A second ago. And I just wanted to see if they weren't maybe No, they're feeding, they're doing fine. Gonna play chicken.
Welcome, Marcus.
Morning,
Hello,
Scott.
Graham.
Hello, Brian. Okay, so his track, just telling everybody, his tracks came Spam Road, down to the dam, back up to Philemon's cut line, cut through. We could see where he came out onto Rebecca's Road, just above where the lion were, actually. So it must have been after they left anyway. And then all the way up Rebecca's Road to the edge of Impala Plains. And if you go up from Impala Plains, you'll actually see where I drew my foot. That's the last track that I got of him. Couldn't find anything on Triple M except the leopard tracks that we saw yesterday when we turned in to go look for the ellies on Arathusa.
Just as well you knew about those ones from yesterday.
Yeah, because they do look quite fresh on the edge, especially being Triple M, and you know how the cars drive up and down the edge of track differently. I haven't seen anything here. I did come up and down here a little bit, so he didn't come out onto this road, he didn't go out onto Triple M. There is a bachelor herd of Impala just here on the northern edge of the open area, and then there's a warthog family on the southern end. So I don't know whether he's hiding out somewhere and he's watching Impala. There's also
some leopard tracks on the property.
Yes.
So good prospects for some time.
I don't know if you heard that, but evidently Diane said that Quarantine had been on Simbambili. Killed a warthog there yesterday.
Which is
stolen by lion. Because when I heard that, I thought, oh, well, maybe that's him, because he was coming up from Treehouse, and that's the straight line to Simbambili. But it's obviously, this must be Konyuma then, if Quarantine was already on Simbambili.
That sounds like it could be the case. But we're going to have to find it to make sure.
We are.
So good luck. We've only got a few more minutes.
See you later.
Cool, Mark.
See you for breakfast.
Yes. Later.
So there you have it. And after driving around for 3 hours, it's strange that we've met up again. But Scott was going to be coming to help with these tracks, and unfortunately, well, there just doesn't seem to be any sign of him coming out onto this road. We'll see whether Scott came from Sandy Patch or whether he came down the power line. If he came from Sandy Patch, I'll head down the power line and get back towards Djuma access, Wetele access road. I believe you were lucky to get an elephant with Scott earlier. Oh, it's okay, it's 3 ellies. Sounds like a cow and the 2 calves. I saw their tracks yesterday. Found all the places where their tracks weren't. And then I think Scott found them yesterday afternoon. Now I found them again this morning. Porcupine was here last night. Been away for a couple of weeks. It's interesting coming back here to this Harvey Sand and seeing how much leaf litter there is, despite the fact that there has been rain and there's a little bit of a flush of green in the grasses and the trees compared to when I left. It was looking rather dry, but there are still signs of winter, the leaves falling and the leaves on the ground. But great to be back this morning. A lot of tracking this morning and not too many results, or are being modest. No results from any of the tracking, to be honest. Or at least we got to see where the tracks left the property, and it was good to hear that the cats had been found further east. And pity that we didn't find them. But thanks also for all your patience with all the tracking that I was doing this morning. I was starting to get a bit excited with this leopard track, thinking that maybe we were going to catch up with him. And well, our sunset safari this afternoon, starting at 3 o'clock Central African time, gives us another chance to follow up on things, and I hope you're going to join us for that. So from Liam and I, well, from myself, Mark, and well, Liam in the back on camera, we'll say goodbye to you for now, and I'll be seeing you this afternoon. I'll be seeing you for your morning, our evening, if you're in the northern hemisphere, the western side of the world. What do you see there? Digging. Warthog digging. Bye everyone, see you later. Love you lots.
Welcome back, and what a beautiful way to close out this morning's drive, watching this African Harrier hawk fluttering about, trying to catch and ride a hot thermal of air spiraling up off the earth as it does warm up today. As you can see, it's still flapping quite a lot, so not the most efficient flight. But that's because it is still cool, and you'll find a lot of the birds of prey will only start thinking about flying now that it is becoming warmer. They rely on the hot air thermals to float effortlessly and efficiently. We've seen the same type of bird digging into cavities of trees trying to pluck out potential prey, and that's how they hunt. So maybe it's looking for a tree with some potential cavities in which to search for some food. They'll pluck small chicks out of nests and reptiles taking refuge in logs. Well, it's been an exciting morning, but sadly a lot of the excitement has finished in disappointment because the leopards that we were hoping to see didn't pop up, but that's all part of the adventure. And we still did get to see some great other animals along the way, and it's always fun coming out and sharing with the viewers. So thanks for signing in. Thanks to Brian on camera, good to be teamed up with you again, and to Nikki and Tara in Final Control, thanks very much. We'll leave you with a few last shots of the warthog as we say goodbye. To tune in for the PM Safari. I'm feeling lucky we're going to find some leopard for you.